In the late 1970s, a rifle appeared that looked like it belonged in a science fiction film. A weapon so futuristic in its design, it would later star as the hero gun in blockbuster movies. This was no movie prop. It was a real, standard-issue military rifle, a product of Austrian engineering that arrived decades ahead of its time. The Steyr AUG combined the visual language of science fiction with the hard requirements of frontline combat, blending radical design with uncompromising reliability. But how did a rifle born inside a European industrial conglomerate, one that shattered nearly every convention of small arms design, become one of the most successful and recognizable bullpup rifles in history? The story of the Steyr AUG begins in the late 1960s, as the Austrian army started planning for the next generation of infantry combat. At the time, the Austrian Bundesheer was armed with the STG-58, a locally produced version of the FN-FAL. It was a proven and respected battle rifle, but it belonged to an earlier era. It was long, heavy, and chambered for a full power cartridge at a moment when global military doctrine was shifting. Lighter weapons, shorter overall lengths, and small caliber, high-velocity ammunition were becoming the future. Austria needed a replacement that reflected that reality. That challenge was taken up not by a traditional small arms firm, but by Steyr Daimler-Puch, a vast industrial conglomerate better known for tractors, trucks, and precision manufacturing. A design team led by Horst Wesp, Karl Wagner, and Karl Moser was tasked with creating more than a single rifle. Their goal was an entire family of weapons built around a common core, using modern materials in industrial design to achieve a level of modularity no service rifle had yet offered. To accomplish this, the team made a radical decision. They adopted a bullpup configuration, placing the action and magazine behind the trigger and into the stock itself. It was a risky choice. Earlier bullpup rifles had struggled with ergonomics, reliability, and soldier acceptance. Steyr believed those problems were not inevitable, and that careful engineering could overcome them. After nearly a decade of development, the result was ready. In 1977, the Austrian army officially adopted the rifle as the Sturmgewehr 77 or STG-77. The rest of the world would know it by another name, the Army Universal Gewehr, the Universal Army Rifle. The engineering behind the Steyr AUG was a synthesis of four revolutionary concepts, unified into a single, practical service rifle. The first and most defining was its bullpup configuration. By placing the action behind the trigger group, the AUG retained a full-length 20-inch barrel while dramatically reducing overall length. It delivered ballistic performance of a standard infantry rifle in a package nearly 10 inches shorter, combining reach and compactness in a way no conventional layout could match. The second innovation was its extensive use of polymer. Rather than limiting plastic to furniture, Steyr molded the rifle's entire external housing from high-strength polymer, including the stock, foregrip, and trigger module. This reduced weight, eliminated corrosion concerns, and gave the AUG its unmistakably futuristic appearance long before polymer became standard in military rifles. The third and arguably most forward-thinking feature was its modular quick-change barrel system. With the press of a single release, the barrel could be removed and replaced in seconds. A single receiver could be configured as a compact carbine, a standard infantry rifle, or a light support weapon with a heavy barrel and bipod. This level of roll flexibility in a standard issue rifle was unprecedented. The fourth innovation was its integrated optic. At a time when most armies still relied on iron sights, the AUG was issued with a factory-mounted 1.5 times telescopic sight built directly into the carrying handle. Its simple circular reticle was optimized for rapid, instinctive target acquisition. Complementing this was a progressive trigger system. A short pull fired a single shot, while a full rearward pull engaged automatic fire on military variants. The rifle was chambered in 5.56 by 45mm NATO, the emerging standard for Western assault rifles. It used a short-stroke gas piston system, driving a rotating bolt that locked into a steel insert within the aluminum receiver, realized with 1970s technology. After its adoption by the Austrian army, the Steyr AUG quickly proved it was more than a national solution. Its success in the international market became a direct validation of its forward-thinking design. The rifle's first major export breakthrough came in the 1980s with its adoption by the Australian Defence Force. Seeking a replacement for their aging L1A1 falls, Australia conducted extensive trials and selected the AUG for its reliability, compactness, and accuracy. Licensed production was established at ADI Lithgow, now Thales, Australia, and the rifle entered service as the F-88 Steyr. For the next 3 decades, it would be the standard issue weapon of Australian soldiers, seeing sustained combat service from Somalia and East Timor to Afghanistan and Iraq. Momentum followed quickly. The AUG was adopted by the Irish Defence Forces, becoming closely associated with both the Irish Army and its elite Army Ranger wing. New Zealand followed, as did Saudi Arabia and dozens of other nations. By the late Cold War, the AUG had become a familiar presence across multiple continents, fielded by conventional armies and elite units alike. At the same time, the rifle began to gain traction in the United States, particularly among law enforcement and federal agencies. As tactical doctrine shifted away from shotguns toward compact, magazine-fed rifles for urban operations, the AUG offered a unique solution. Its short overall length made it ideal for vehicle operations in confined spaces, while its rifle caliber performance far exceeded that of traditional submachine guns. Agencies such as US Customs adopted the AUG to fill this emerging role. Yet the rifle's leap into global recognition did not come from military service or police adoption. It came from the silver screen. Its futuristic silhouette and unconventional layout made it the perfect visual shorthand for advanced firepower, turning the Steyr AUG into a fixture of 1980s and 1990s action cinema and a permanent icon of pop culture. The Steyr AUG's true rival was not a single rifle, but the entire philosophy of conventional infantry weapon design, best represented by the American M16. The M16 had become the Western standard. Its layout was familiar and linear, with the action and magazine positioned forward of the trigger. Its handling characteristics were well understood, its manual of arms had become universal, and its iron sights reflected decades of established doctrine. The AUG challenged that orthodoxy outright. Its bullpup configuration shifted the weapon's mass rearward, creating exceptional balance and allowing the rifle to remain steady on target with minimal effort. This compactness came with trade-offs. The magazine positioned behind the firing hand and beneath the shooter's cheek made reload slower and more complex under stress. The proximity of the ejection port to the shooter's face also imposed limitations, particularly for left-handed users. What emerged was a clear divide in design philosophy. The M16 embodied continuity, a layout optimized for speed, familiarity, and ease of training across large conventional forces. The AUG embodied disruption, a shorter, more maneuverable rifle that demanded new habits, new drills, and new assumptions about ergonomics. One path prioritized institutional memory and standardization. The other offered compactness and balance, at the cost of retraining an entire generation of soldiers. Rather than being defined by wars in the Middle East, the Steyr AUG's public image was forged on Hollywood's town stages. Its most iconic appearance came in the 1988 film Die Hard, where the AUG was not simply another background prop, but the signature weapon of the antagonist Hans Gruber and his elite team. That choice was deliberate. The rifle's sleek, unconventional profile immediately signaled to audiences that these were not ordinary criminals, but disciplined, professional operators. That single film cemented the AUG's reputation as a high-tech, precise, and distinctly foreign firearm. The image only grew stronger as it became a recurring presence in science fiction cinema, appearing in films like The Fifth Element and later as a high-tier aspirational weapon in countless video games. This cinematic reputation, however, conceals a far more conservative engineering reality. Beneath its polymer shell and radical bullpup layout lies a straightforward, proven operating system. The AUG uses a short-stroke gas piston with a rotating bolt, a design lineage closely related to reliable service rifles such as the AR-18. In mechanical terms, it was not experimental at all. It was a conventional and durable engine housed inside a futuristic exterior. This is where the rifle's real achievement becomes clear. As Jonathan Ferguson, keeper of firearms and artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum, has observed, the AUG's importance lies not in any single breakthrough, but in the way it successfully combined existing ideas. The bullpup layout, polymer construction, modular barrel system, and integrated optic were unified into one dependable service rifle. Its identity was forever shaped by Hollywood's vision of the future. The darker side of the AUG's story lies in the unavoidable compromises of its bullpup design. The most persistent criticism has always been its trigger. In a bullpup rifle, the trigger sits far forward of the action, requiring a long mechanical linkage to transfer movement to the sear. In the AUG, this resulted in a trigger pull that many shooters found heavy and indistinct when compared to conventional rifles like the M16. For a weapon marketed on precision and modernity, this was a meaningful concession. Ergonomics presented a second challenge, particularly for left-handed soldiers. Early AUG variants ejected spent casings directly beside the shooter's face. While the ejection port could be converted for left-handed use, doing so required disassembling the bolt, a process not suited to field conditions. As a result, a rifle configured for right-handed use could not be safely fired from the left shoulder, limiting tactical flexibility. Later models mitigated this with case deflectors, but the issue never fully disappeared. The AUG also became entangled in political controversy in the United States. Civilian importation was halted in 1989, and the rifle was later named explicitly in the 1994 federal assault weapons ban. These restrictions reinforce its public image as an exotic and potentially dangerous foreign weapon, distinct from more familiar American service rifles. The Steyr AUG ultimately stood at both ends of the spectrum, a rifle that represented the cutting edge of modern design and a clear example of the trade-offs that accompany radical departures from established norms. The original A1 model was not an endpoint. It was the foundation of a platform that would continue to evolve for decades. The first major step came in the 1990s with the A2 variant. This version solved one of the AUG's most significant limitations by abandoning the fixed optic. The distinctive carrying handle became removable, replaced by a Picatinny rail that allowed modern red dots, magnified optics, and night vision devices. The A3 followed soon after, pushing the design further with a redesigned receiver, full-length accessory rails for lights and lasers, and the addition of a bolt-release lever to speed reloads. But while the AUG was evolving, the battlefield was changing around it. Short-barreled 5.56mm carbines like the M4 began to dominate modern armies. These rifles offered nearly the same compactness as a bullpup, but retained a conventional layout with faster reloads, simpler ergonomics, and better compatibility with evolving infantry tactics. They also provided improved performance against modern body armor, reducing the appeal of older compact weapon solutions. Even so, the AUG's true legacy was already secure. It proved that the bullpup concept was not a curiosity, but a viable, reliable, and scalable military rifle. Its success gave other nations the confidence to pursue their own bullpup programs, directly influencing designs like France's FAMAS, Britain's SA-80, and Israel's Steyr. That influence continues today. Australia's F90, also known as the A-Trax, represents the latest evolution of the F88 Austria lineage. Lighter, more refined, and unmistakably descended from the original 1970s design. Steyr itself continues to produce modern AUG variants for military, law enforcement, and civilian markets. The Steyr AUG is no longer the gun of the future. It is a proven and established part of the present. A weapon story is usually one of revolution or evolution. The Steyr AUG is the rare case of both. What began as a radical experiment in ergonomics and materials became one of the most successful and enduring bullpup rifles ever built, and a permanent fixture of popular culture. To the Austrian engineers who created it, the AUG was a triumph of industrial logic. Modular, efficient, and unapologetically ahead of its time. To the Australian soldiers who carried it through the deserts of Afghanistan, it was something far simpler and far more important. A rugged, reliable, and remarkably compact tool that proved itself far from its European origin. These two perspectives, that of the radical vision and that of the proven workhorse, are not in conflict. They are the same story of successful innovation. That is the AUG's true power, its ability to transform a futuristic idea into decades of dependable service, and to prove that bold design can survive contact with reality. Its chapter of radical innovation is closed, but its legacy remains open, carried forward by every rifle it inspired. The Steyr AUG stands as proof that a daring vision can become a timeless weapon of war.